In today's episode of The Rag, I interviewed David Stone, the co-founder and chief exec of MRL Consulting Group. This is a business who specialise in technical, automotive and electrical recruitment, headquartered in Brighton with offices in Germany and France. They've got 61 staff, started in 1997 and have had an amazing journey, loads of ups and downs. I really enjoyed the chat with David. He's a genuinely lovely bloke, so much energy and so much to share. And recently he's hit a lot of press really in the recruitment space because he's implemented a 4-day week. What that means is targets remain the same, everything remains the same, but the staff in his business only work Monday to Thursday. They actually get a 3-day weekend every single week. He's credited the idea to another recruitment owner who he knows, and he made a lot of noise on LinkedIn recently, getting over 200,000 views on a post which he talked about to the industry. So I was excited to find out the whole story, but also what's happened since he implemented it. Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. So without further ado, David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Good to see you on this slightly nicer day than I recorded a podcast yesterday, and It was literally hammering it down out the window. You could hear it, but today's not too bad. Yeah, you've rolled up after a nice day in London, rushed into the office, and I was late. Well, good to have you in, David. Look, I've given you an intro. I've talked about you before, but I can never do it justice. So tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
David Stone. I run MRL Consulting Group. We are niche, high-tech, mainly electronics recruitment, international, 85% perm, 15% contract.
Wow. So automotive and electrical?
Automotive is a massive segment for us with the advent of autonomous driving, electrification of vehicles, etc. So the automotive tech segment is huge for us right now. We started life as a semiconductor recruitment company, so it's chips, components, microelectronics. But the beauty of chips is that they are at the heart of anything electronic. So having a really good chips knowledge gives you access to a huge number of closely related tech market segments like medical electronics, automotive, solar, PV, battery storage. There's a whole bunch of associated
stuff you never think, like you just don't think about. Like,
you're surrounded by it, but you don't think about it.
Yeah. So what I love about this, the industry in general, but especially my podcast, is everyone I meet has such different niches. So I'd love to hear more. So tell us, what were you doing before you started MRL? Were you in recruitment then?
Yeah. Okay. So left uni, tons of debt, had great fun as a student.
Familiar.
Yeah, really good fun. Got a job as a trainee recruiter because the job was paying 25 grand on target at a time when all my mates were getting jobs as trainee accountants on 12 grand. So it was about twice what they were going to get paid, and I thought I need to get that job. So I went and got that job at Austin Ben, and that was proper old school cold calling, 120 cold calls a day. Just work your way through a card box relentlessly. Yeah, so pretty aggressive, but great training ground. From there, saw an ad for trainee international headhunter for a company in Lewis, and this was ERC, as she was. And my girlfriend lived in Lewis at the time, so I was spending half my life in Lewis, and I thought, hey, great.
Where's Lewis?
Lewis, 12 miles right of Brighton.
Right, okay. Cool. Yeah, no idea. Sounds good.
East Sussex county town, but no one's ever heard of it. But there was this job in Lewis, and it was recruitment, and my girlfriend's there, so I thought, brilliant, let's go and get that job. So I went and got that one, and they taught me niche market, electronics, headhunting, international. Okay. Along the way, ERC became PSD, part of the PSD group. Yeah. Okay. And PSD, this is back in the early mid-90s, they were brilliant at the time. They owned their market space. The training was awesome. The people, they had a world-class team, and they're really brilliant people. But the place, to me, was riven with petty politics, bureaucracy, red tape, petty micromanagement. And myself and another chap were just like, look, recruitment's a brilliant job. You just don't need all the nonsense that goes with it. Yeah. Why don't we go and set up our own little company?
How long had you been in recruitment at that point when you started thinking about setting up?
About 9 months at Austin Ben, and then 2.5 years at PSD.
All right, so it's only less than 3.5 years.
Yeah.
That's quite soon in your career, really, isn't it? To start thinking.
Yeah, I suppose at that age, though, you're 27. Yeah. You think you know everything. You think you can take over the world.
Yeah, I definitely do.
And so we just thought, come on, we can do this. Yeah. You don't have to wear a suit and tie to work. You don't have to shave every day. If you want to have a cigarette, well, go and have a cigarette. You know, all the things that PSD was saying you couldn't do. And so we set up a little company and just said, right, let's go.
And that was MRL then?
We started life as Microscape. The name at the time was Microscape, which over the years has morphed into MRL, which is Microscape Recruitment Limited.
All right, I like it. Yeah, awesome. So, what year you started? 1997.
97. Yeah.
Paint the picture for everyone. What was your startup story like?
The company, to be absolutely fair, I won't take full credit. Paul, my co-founder, he started the business on his own back bedroom. I came along a few months later. Then we hired an admin.
Was there a reason for that?
He was quite a wealthy guy and was able to do that.
No, you had to hit commission or whatever.
Yeah. And then we hired or rented a really skanky, dirty little office in central Brighton.
Yeah.
And it was just Paul, myself, and the admin lady, and went from there.
What was the admin lady for at the beginning?
Answering the phones, coding CVs, coding as in the old fashion,
Yeah.
getting a CV, putting it into the system and making sure all the fields are filled in correctly. Yeah. Tiny bit of research, tiny bit of admin interview arranging.
Just making sure you could
It was
focus on
almost
the
like
good stuff.
a Girl Friday. She did lots of the stuff that wasn't sales related.
Yeah.
So a bit of minor bookkeeping, making sure there's pens and paper in the office, that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it? What was the first few months like? Just you two running for it?
Yeah, working 12, 14-hour days. We absolutely went for it. It was like really full on, really intense. But it's quite good fun, yeah?
Yeah.
This was a different time in recruitment. It's long before the advent of LinkedIn and RPOs and internal talent acquisition teams, yeah. And so we were just running at this niche micro.
How were you going out for clients? Did you have any restrictive covenant period you had to think about?
And we were extremely clean on that. We didn't nick any information, nick any business whatsoever. We were clean hands on that. PSD tried to say that we weren't and went for us legally, but we had no case to answer, so that was fine.
How were you acquiring new customers at the time then?
On the phone.
Just
Old-fashioned recruitment. There's a company you want to deal with, phone them up and make a relationship and start talking. And it's old-fashioned recruitment.
you make it sound so simple, don't
It
you?
is, but recruitment is simple. It's beautifully simple. This is the thing I love about it. And people get confused with all this modern online auto, email, social media, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, you don't need to. If you can pick up the phone, you can make things move, you can build a business. And I'd say right now, if all the computers died, we could still run a recruitment business, yeah?
Yeah.
I got into recruitment before there was a computer on the desk. You had a card box and a phone, and you just hammered the phones, and you got candidates, and you moved people around the market, yeah? And you could still do that today.
You could. I don't think many people would want to do it that way.
No, not many would want to, but the skills exist. I do still train my people internally for old-fashioned recruitment, how to headhunt without the use of LinkedIn and Monster and Zing and things like that. How would you go through a company and get the names of the people and then access those people and have a business conversation?
Yeah.
And we still train our people today to that level. Yeah?
Love it. So let's go back then. So there's two of you in Central Brighton. That must have been fun.
Yeah.
It's been tempting to go out and have a few drinks. And
We did. Well, we'd sort of do 10, 12, 14 hours, whatever it would be in the office, finishing probably 9 o'clock most nights in the early days. And then there was a pub next door called the King and Queen in central Brighton. We'd go there, have 2 or 3 pints and talk about the day's events, come back in the next day, rinse and repeat, and just do that and do that and do that.
Did you have any other responsibilities at the time?
I had a couple of small children, but my wife was actually, or wife-to-be at the point, she was very accommodating and understanding that we were building the business. So
that is always a tricky balance at the beginning. My fiance, she met me when I was billing at my biggest, so I was like 700k biller, had loads of cash, took her on holiday. Like at first, we'd been together a few months, took her to Dubai. She's like, "Oh, this guy's great." And then about a year later, I was like, "I'm quitting my job. I'm going to be starting a business, and I won't have anybody to do anything, and I probably won't be around for like 15 hours a day."
Yeah.
And she stuck with me, so that's why we're getting married next week. But I've heard so many stories about like relationships and just your personal life going completely mental when you start.
Well, yeah, it can. I think it can easily go badly wrong. Unfortunately, fortunately, we've got a very old-fashioned relationship. Yeah, my wife, she was a barrister. She was a practicing barrister. She stays at home, raises the kids, runs the house. We've got 5 kids. Yeah, so that's a pretty intense full-time job in itself. I go to work, earn the money. Now, so the loose agreement we've got is I've never got to push a hoover around or do any ironing. Equally, she hasn't got to worry about the bills getting paid. So it's a nice old-fashioned relationship, which works really well for us.
Yeah.
And to be fair, when I've taken time off to look after the kids like she does, I couldn't do her job.
No.
And I wouldn't want to do her job.
No, I've had so many people tell
I'm
me.
safer in the office than I am at home.
So how did that first year go in terms of performance?
Good. We were smashing it. It was boom time in tech recruitment at the time, and we had the hunger, we had the appetite, and we were just going hell for leather at the market.
Can you remember what you built in that year one?
we'd set ourselves a target between us. It was a really noddy target. I think we'd set a target between us of 300,000, and I think we did close to 600,000.
In year one?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
In 97?
Yeah.
So what would that be equivalent to now, do you think? 1.5 million or something? It's probably
No, it can't be that much. I don't know.
Surely the value's doubled since then.
I don't know.
It's amazing.
It would have gone up, but no.
It's a great first year.
No, we and to be fair, at the time there were very few competitors. Yeah. Now there's a million recruitment companies, and there's a niche specialist for absolutely everything and its dog.
True.
Right. At the time, there were very, very few head-on competitors. I think we were the first people to be seen to leave PSD and be successful. Yeah. And I'd had quite a traumatic exit from the company, shall we say. The MD was a little bit rude to me when I left, and so it was quite a bit of a personal mission and vendetta to attack PSD. But they had their flaws. They were retained by so many companies in the market, which meant they weren't allowed to headhunt into those companies, right? That's the ethics of niche recruitment. And so we made massive amounts of revenue by going into the companies they weren't allowed to get the staff that they weren't allowed to approach, and we'd then place those staff elsewhere. So actually that really played to our benefit.
600k year one sounds exciting. How did you grow the business? Did you grow the team that year?
By the end of the year, towards the end of the year, we made our first hire. We hired a guy to work the French market, because neither Paul and myself spoke any French. We were doing a lot in Belgium and Germany already. We've never really run at the UK too much. It's always been international, with quite a strong German angle to it.
Yeah.
France is quite a nepotistic region, and
you think about cars in general and motors, and you always think of Europe and Germany, and they've got that legacy, haven't they?
And the French are brilliant at tech, but France as a region to do business with, it's quite nepotistic. They don't really want to deal with Brits or Brits who speak French. They'd rather deal with French people in France speaking French. Yeah. Anyway, we hired this Brit who spoke French, and he started running at the French market. He had a really good start to recruitment. He was with us quite a long time in the end. And then off the back of that, we hired more, grew more, hired more, grew more. But between 97 and 2001, this is the dot-com boom era, yeah. And there was a massive bubble going up in tech. It was rampant. Tech recruitment was bonkers at the time. And we were making far too much money in real terms. We took all the staff to Courchevel for a long weekend skiing. We took all the staff to Barbados for a long weekend of fun. Yeah. And we were just doing all the things you do when you're young and have too much money in your pocket. Yeah. And it was brilliant. And then in 2001, the dot-com bubble explodes and everything goes into reverse. And we had an account, and a company we were dealing with at the time called Infineon, and we'd been taking £1 million a year in fee out of Infineon in 2001, and I think in 2002 we made £50,000 out of Infineon. So that's how dramatic the industry went down. The tech market went down from being £1 million account to a £50,000 a year account in 1 year.
So how many people did you have when you hit that boom?
By this point,
the end of the boom, sorry.
We must have been high teens. I think we were high teens by that point. But we'd put a load of money in the bank, so we didn't make any redundancies. We grafted through the recession, the dot-com bubble recession, and that was really gruesome. It was horrible. But we worked our way through that. And then as we came out in 2003, 2004, we were quite well positioned because we'd kept the team in place, we'd been loyal to our people, and we were then ready for the next upswing. And then the game went on again. And so it followed a new upcycle, which was brilliant, until Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers goes bust, everything goes down again.
Yeah.
Currently now we're on another upswing.
So when you lost so much revenue from clients, etc., did you have to let anyone go at that point?
At that point, no.
You had a small enough function.
We were quite tight. We didn't have that much in the way of overheads or periphery expenses or back office or what have you. It was quite a tight operation.
Yeah.
So we made the trims that we needed to in terms of sensible cost cutting, but we kept the team together. It was quite important to keep, because they were well-trained people, they were good people, and so we just did our best and grafted through the market as best we could, yeah. And then the idea was that when the market swings up, you've got the team, which we did at that time.
You held on to the right people?
Yeah.
So going into up to 2007-8, when it all changed again, talk me through that journey.
Right. Good story, bad story. Okay, so we came out in 2004 and things are starting to go really hot again. And at the time we thought, we're too exposed to tech, we've just taken a hiding because we're a pure tech recruitment company, let's diversify. And at the time in Brighton, there was another recruitment company called GRS, and they were going great guns at risk, audit, compliance, niche finance recruitment. And they nicked one of our people. And I thought, sod you can't do that. We're looking to diversify. Why don't we start doing risk, audit, compliance and set up a financial practice? So we set up MRL Financial, okay, MRL Microscope Recruitment Limited, MRL Financial, doing niche investment bank recruitment. And myself and 2 other guys stopped doing tech recruitment, started phoning up the big banks, and before you know it, you've got clients, you've got vacancies, you're making revenue. We're dealing with people like Deutsche Bank, Barclays Capital, HSBC. Yeah, recruitment is my view. And as long as you can learn a new industry, you can get things moving. And so all that started taking off and flying massively. So we had MRL Technology doing the old-fashioned tech stuff, MRL Financial doing this new risk audit compliance stuff. And we thought, well, aren't we clever? We've got 2 businesses and it's going brilliantly and we're diversified. So if one market goes down, we're cool. Off the back of it, we opened an office in Dubai doing finance recruitment. We opened an office in Singapore doing financial and tech recruitment. End of 2007, we were just sitting there thinking, well, this is brilliant. We peaked at about 97 staff, I think we got to at that point. Yeah. And then Lehman Brothers went bust. And we entered an absolute world of pain. And it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific.
Can you remember what it was like at the time when you heard about that? It's one of those moments, I think, for a lot of people that they're like...
Well, you were watching on the news with all the people leaving the bank carrying their boxes of stuff, and you're thinking, well, how is this going to affect me? This could be a bit rough. Not sure how it's going to affect me.
What was the size of your financial practice at that point?
Crikey, 30, 40 people.
Right, so it's a substantial part of your business.
We had 22 people in Dubai doing financial recruitment in the Gulf, in the Middle East, yeah. And we weren't doing any tech in the Middle East. And we had quite a big element of the business was this financial practice. And then Lehman goes bust, and at first you're thinking, we'll be all right, we'll jog through, yeah? But it was the speed the market went down and companies started turning out the lights was frightening. And our Dubai office went from being a profitable office to losing over 100 grand a month. And very quickly you're thinking, Jesus, I've got to kill that office before it brings the company down. Yeah, so you end up closing an office, which is...
So tell me about that. Shame. What was that like, flying over to Dubai to...
Horrific.
Yeah, I bet.
We shrunk it down. At first you try and do the things to salvage it, get rid of some of the weaker people, keep some of the better people, move to a smaller office, try and keep the thing going. But as time goes on, it's just getting tougher and tougher. No one in the Gulf was hiring. There was just no recruitment going on. We need people to be hiring to make money, right? So if no one's hiring, we're screwed, right? And so it went down to a team of 10 and then 8 and then 6. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse to the point that you think, and we were in the DIFC, which is the main financial centre for Dubai. The rent was criminally expensive. And just got to the point where you're going, well, this is stupid. We're going to end up crashing the company for the sake of a little office in Dubai. Turf it, yeah. So, I had to make the flight over there and close it down, which was not a pleasant thing at all.
No, that sounds... Was that the first time you had to do something like that?
Yeah, I think that was the first office I've ever closed.
Wow. What did those people go on to do? Because it's not a time you can just roll out into Dubai and get another job, I imagine.
Well, at the time, this was also coinciding with the advent of internal talent acquisition functions and the advent of RPO stuff, which was really just starting to gain traction then. A lot of them went internal, and you could pretty much double your basic salary by going from agency recruitment to internal. Some of them ended up working for some of the Gulf banks, some of them for IBM, some of the big tech companies in the Middle East. Some have stayed in recruitment. Not many. A few have stayed in proper recruitment. Yeah. I'd guess the majority are in some form of internal recruitment now. And they've scattered. There's some in Hong Kong, Australia, Canada, I think one of them is.
So you let go of you shut down the Dubai business. What happens to the rest of your finance practice here?
It pretty much whittled itself away to a very small offering in head office in Hove, where we had a lady named Anke Brown, who was a German lady, one of the best recruiters I've ever seen. And she was running the German financial recruitment market. And she had built a relationship with Deutsche Bank to make Deutsche Bank our largest client about 3 years running as a company, which sort of was an anomaly because we were basically a tech recruitment company, but our largest client 3 years running was Deutsche Bank. And she just had such a great relationship there that we, even though the rest of the finance practice died, we kept Anke Brown and her Germanic market business going because it was just self-sustaining.
And did that continue?
Yeah, still is to this day.
And is that what you're still doing in Germany now?
Yes, and we're still dealing with Deutsche Bank to this day.
So when you started work, let's go back a little bit actually. So when did you first look at opening a second office? What year was that?
That would have been early 2000s, and that was That was my colleague Jean-Baptiste. So we'd hired a young French guy. We'd been looking for someone to run the French market in Brighton. And we found this young French guy working in a coffee shop in Brighton.
Really?
Yeah. And he'd left university, ended up in Brighton, didn't really know which way to go with his life, but he was a super bloke, really commercial, really switched on. We hired him into the Brighton office, turned him into a recruiter. He was running the French market.
Stories like that, coffee shops.
And he was brilliant.
Yeah.
One of the best recruiters I've ever met in my life, but the best French recruiter I've ever met by miles. Yeah. And then one day he comes to us and he goes, look, my wife's pregnant and I don't really want my kids going to an English school. All my business is in France. I'm always going to France to meet clients and candidates. Why don't we set up an office? So basically the decision would have been either lose him and lose the best French recruiter I've ever met, or
go and open up.
Play along. So we went down to Sophia Antipolis, which is near Nice on the Côte d'Azur, found a little Regis office, put him in a little Regis office, and then from there he's built an office of 11 people now. And it's a brilliant team, and he runs a brilliant team of people.
So how... That was almost pushed on you then, which is great, because sometimes you don't even know you're ready till you're ready.
Yeah.
How did you then manage it from Brighton to ensure the culture was the same and the ethos?
JB had spent 3 or 4 years already in the UK office by that time, so he was probably pretty indoctrinated as to how we do things. And even to this day, he's very old school. This is how things are done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it still works. The old-fashioned, the old-school approach still works perfectly. So he's taken that approach perfectly into the French office. And so if anything now, whereas the Hove office, the UK office has evolved, the French office is still being run pretty much on the terms that JB was trained in 2001, 2002, 2003. Yeah. So it's good. But yeah, I go down there once a quarter, every few months or whatever, and spend a few days down there. Yeah. We have people from the French office coming to the UK for stuff, and there's obviously a lot of phone contacts. So we're very close to them. They're not just some island somewhere.
Yeah. And when did you open Dubai?
Dubai was a little bit of, not that, a year or so probably after that. Dubai was kicking off. It was starting to really go mental at the time. And we were starting to do some really good golf financial recruitment from the UK. And we thought, okay, there's an angle here. There's not many recruitment companies on the ground in Dubai. One of the guys from Hove really fancied living the expat dream.
Yeah.
And he was a brilliant recruiter in his own right. So he went out there and started to build the office. And to be honest, we ended up growing it too big, too fast. We hired far too many people too quickly. And then when the wheels came off, that's why it ended up in such difficulty.
So is that the main thing you learned about that opportunity? Then you wouldn't.
That, and they lost their niche focus. They started as risk audit compliance in the Gulf, but then I suppose got a bit greedy, and they would chase pretty much anything anywhere in the Gulf. And lesson for me, I didn't step in quick enough. I remember going over to the Dubai office once, and they were doing some recruitment for Lurpak. And I was sitting there thinking, what on earth are we doing recruiting for a butter company? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a finance job for a butter company. It was like a sales job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is fast-moving consumer goods. We don't know anything about FMCG recruitment. But the Dubai office had just started running at everything everywhere. There was no niche focus or specialisation.
That's dangerous, yeah.
And I think, honestly, if we had kept it really tight, say risk recruitment, we probably could have kept an office in Dubai, even if it was only 2, 3, 4 people. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure we could have kept a presence there if we'd kept it focused. It was diversification that killed it.
I like that. So you come back, and obviously we get to the Lehman Brothers point. Had you already opened in Germany by then?
Yep, we had the office in Dresden. There was a huge boom in manufacturing in the Saxony region of Germany. German government was giving massive incentives to foreign companies to come in and build massive plants. And this was particularly off the back of semiconductor manufacturing and solar PV, photovoltaic stuff. And so we were doing huge amounts of business putting people into these fabrication sites in the Dresden area, to the point that we thought, come on, it makes perfect sense. We're doing so much business over there. Let's have an office on the ground. And obviously that then gives us access to hiring more German people, because we always struggled in Brighton to find either people who spoke German or Germans who would move to Brighton.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, so it's like moving the mountain to Muhammad, isn't it? We end up going to Germany, at which point we can hire more local domestic Germans.
How did you find the shift from being a one office to then 3 or 4? Did that, from your role specifically, did you cope with that?
It's exciting. It can be a bit stressy, a bit draining, but what I've learned is the foreign offices, the extra offices, it is totally and utterly dependent on the skills and the quality of the person in charge. Yeah, if you've got a wobbly person in charge, that office is gonna be a nightmare. If you've got a good person in charge, it should be relatively straightforward. Now, that's being very simplistic. But what I always say to the foreign officers is, if you're not seeing me often, that's good. If I'm over here often, that means there's a problem. Yeah, but if you're not seeing me that regularly, that means things must be going well. Otherwise, I'd be over there. Yeah.
So, if we go, I want to just dig a little bit deeper into that first 10 years, from the moment you started to Lehman Brothers, and just talk about your job, because I think starting a recruitment business, you're on the ground, you're billing 600k with your partner in day one. Had you ever managed people before?
No.
Nope. So you were a biller?
No, I'd left ERC or PSD as a senior consultant.
Was he the same, your partner?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So how did you guys... How did your roles evolve in that? Because I think that's a really big thing for recruitment owners. And if you have or haven't managed, your role's going to evolve as an owner, and you don't actually always know the route. So how did yours go?
Yeah. Okay. So in real terms, we made all our mistakes the hard way. We learned all our lessons the hard way, which I wouldn't recommend. We didn't take any mentoring or advice or anything like that. Not that we thought we knew it all, but we just didn't know anyone who we could have asked for the advice. We just got on with it. When we left PSD, we took what we felt were their best ideas and best practice. Niche market, proactive, quite aggressive, headhunting, retained search, high fee, high value. We took all the best ideas, left behind what we thought was all the nonsense, like I said about wearing suits and having to shave every day and all that silly stuff. And then effectively, I suppose, made it up as we went along. So we did what we thought was the right thing to do. I had an aversion to being micromanaged. I hated being micromanaged when I was a recruiter, so I tend not to micromanage people. And that's not necessarily the right answer. Some people do need micromanagement, but I'm quite hands-off. So the way it evolved with Paul and myself was I ended up doing a lot of the training, back office, ops end of the business. I quite enjoy training, and I ended up putting together a sort of an idiot's guide, A to Z training manual of recruitment, because we always took on rookies and trained them to become 360 consultants. And I used to take a lot of that training on board and do that myself, which is really rewarding. When you see a good person come good, that's really rewarding.
And what was his role? More BD
and sort of telling other people what to do. I don't think he enjoyed the man management aspect. So bit by bit over the years, it ended up more and more burden and responsibility, I suppose, was falling on me. And then Paul became more disengaged with the business, where he'd take quite long periods out of the business, go off and do stuff, and then come back for a bit, and then go off and...
How long were you billing for till you came off the tools?
I'd like to say 5 or 6 years, I think, ish. But it was tailing. Because what I'd do, I loved the BD. Personally, I absolutely loved the BD. I wasn't particularly great at account management end of the business.
Yeah, I was the same.
And what I'd do is open an account, make a couple of placements, get the fees in place, make a relationship, and then pass to someone else, and then go and do the same somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else.
I'm exactly that.
It's the fun end of the job.
Yeah, but I think it's also knowing what you're good at.
And also it's the bit that most rookies seem to fail at when they come into recruitment, is the new biz end. And I've got this whole theory about this hunter-farmer thing going on. And I think it's very difficult to find a personality type where you're both a perfect blend of hunter and farmer. Yeah, I don't believe people are 50-50 hunter-farmer. You're one or the other. And I think if you can play the job to your strengths, but most people who come into recruitment as rookies, as 360s, they fail at the new biz end of the job, the new biz cold calling negotiation end of the job. You put them into a farming capacity, most people typically seem to be much, much happier. And interestingly, it's the farming end of the job, the account management, where the real money is. Yeah, once you're into an account, rinsing that account, getting every single placement of that account.
Oh, it's really important.
The new biz guy is spending half his life on wild goose chases. Yeah. Like a magpie. And I've got this whole theory on this. So what we've done at MRL is ended up now, we've split the functions between new biz 360 and account managers. Yeah.
There's a lot of businesses going that way now.
It's a logical evolution, I think, of recruitment. In the old days, going back to ancient times in the 90s, we were all trained as 360s, yeah? And the fail rate in the industry is about 2 in 3. 2 in 3 will fail or leave within probation, which is bonkers. It's criminal. That much time and effort and money is being spent on people who won't make it through probation, yeah? But if you get into that and think, okay, well, let's change the model slightly. I'm going to bring you in as an account manager. You can learn recruitment without the scary bit of cold calling. Yes, I could turn you into a new biz guy in the future once you've learnt recruitment. That's a different proposition. But taking somebody fresh out of uni or fresh out of a a sales job and turning them into a fully fledged international tech 360, it's not impossible. It's very, very, very hard, which is why the fail rate is so high.
Yeah, good point actually. I think my experience was when I started in Australia in Melbourne, and I was a teacher, so I was a 25-year-old school teacher that was in Australia, and I couldn't teach, so I got a job I basically BD'd myself around the city, got a job at Randstad. It was huge, and I was put into this. I was put into an IT team, but then we won the Victorian state government contract as I joined. So they created this team, very clever what they did. They created a team of people from finance, from IT, from business support, put this like 10-man team together, paid us no commission. So they basically took a load of Brits on visas that they could get away with having no commission structure. Yeah. And it was like this amazing little training ground because they won the government PSL, which meant there was 300 entities that we could work with, and we had terms, but we had no data. None of them knew us, and none of them had to work with us. So it was BD, but in a slightly safer environment. But then because the terms were agreed, it was 7 to 9% margins depending on what you were doing.
Ouch.
There was no commission in it because there was no value in it. So it was like I was running around. I got to 28 contractors in a year, and I was like thinking I'm great, but then my brother who was working in a small recruitment firm, he was like a 3-man band. He did like 5 deals and earned $20,000 in 3 months in commission. I was like, fuck am I doing?
I'm in the wrong game.
Yeah, but I do value actually. When I came to London, I joined Venquis, and I was doing business. I was doing Lloyd's of London Market. It was just like the government. It was like everyone wanted to meet for coffee. You could play musical chairs. You could see your market and all the clients within it. Only this time I could commercially look at my own fees. And that's where the money came. Yeah. But I definitely learned in a way that there was BD, but delivery was a big part of it. Yeah. Whereas I think if you're thrown in at everything at you early on, you take a really strong character.
It's hard, yeah. And that's why the fail rate is so high. And
that's crazy.
That's why I think recruitment gets such a bad reputation for being churn and burn. And you've got these chop shops in London, or, well, any city, I suppose, where they hire 20 people and see if one sticks.
Well, they know they've got that.
And you're thinking, well, what a waste of time and money. Really?
It's tough, though, because the bit about recruiters is, I mean, I've got a recruitment business that all they do is get salespeople and put them into recruitment companies. So we live and breathe it. But it is very hard to actually see on paper whether or not they're going to be able to do it. Yeah. We look for like demonstrable sales experience, proactive sales as well, not like working in a phone shop where people come in. And even that's still no foolproof way.
No, there isn't a foolproof way. I've got this theory that the best recruiters typically, it's a bit like when you're speccing a new laptop at Dell. You need tons and tons of memory, retentive memory, and you need a really, really fast processor. But interviewing for tons and tons of memory and a really fast processor, it's not an exact science. No. And you do your best at it, but it's not an exact science. And a previous sales job doesn't mean they're going to be any good at recruitment either.
No. Memory is actually one of the biggest assets. Yeah. I used to remember everyone I was dealing with.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's go back. So coming out of the Lehman Brothers crash, how long did you sit in a slump for at that point?
Much longer than we realised at the time, years actually. And it was firefighting. Every day was a battle and bad news, and you're going into work every day thinking, Jesus, what am I up against today? What's going to go wrong today?
Did you ever think of quitting?
No, couldn't do that.
Did you ever think the business might go under?
I got worried. A couple of times got quite worried.
And you were earning, sounds like the business was turning over a hell of a lot beforehand. If you had 22 in Dubai. And
I kindly awarded myself a massive pay cut when it got really bad, which was painful. But anyway, it comes with the territory, doesn't it? And I didn't give any of my staff a pay cut, just myself. So my wife was chuffed with that. It was only when we started to come out of it a few years ago that you thought, Jesus, that was longer and harder and deeper than I ever realised when I was in it.
Yeah.
Because when I was in it, I was so busily fighting fires, I couldn't see what was going on. But then you start to step out of it and you're like, wow, that was painful. That was super painful. Yeah.
What year do you think you properly came out?
Only about 3 or 4 years ago now. So what's that, 215 maybe?
Wow.
So I'd say there was a good seven years of pain in there, really. But there was other structural issues with the company. I was having difficulties with my business partner. It wasn't just the macroeconomics.
So what happened with the business partner?
We came to an end of our journey together.
When was that?
We finalised our business divorce about 3.5 years ago now.
And how long did you know that things were wrong before that?
For a few years, it hadn't been going right.
And you said he was taking time out, and
well, he'd gone off. He'd spent a year paragliding, then he came back, and then he spent a year doing a master's degree, and then he came back, and he was off. I think he had lost the passion for recruitment, But it was still, effectively his business, or 50-50 his business. Yeah. So he'd come back and then he'd wander off.
Taking salary at that point? Or?
Yeah. Which was fair enough in a way. It was half his business, wasn't it? But
still
anyway,
frustrating from your perspective. You're running.
It was when we were cost cutting and having to pay for that. Yeah, that was painful. Yeah, but anyway, and that's partly what led to the end of the relationship. So we settled it reasonably amicably, and
you had to buy him out, I imagine.
Well, no, we'd bought a building as head office in Brighton, and so the net result was Paul is now a property developer. So long story short, he ended up with the building, which we'd got planning permission on to turn into flats. He turned it into a whole bunch of flats. I got the recruitment business, moved it to a separate serviced office. End of the journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how has it changed since then?
Brilliant.
Because you've now got full say.
Well, yeah, and it's not that Paul ever particularly came in and made my life a misery. It was just not having total freedom of manoeuvrability. Yeah. So in the 3 years since we separated, we as a company, we've doubled sales and increased headcount by about 50%. Yeah.
And that's coincided with the market being good as well?
As well as the market being good, which helps.
Good timing though for you.
As well as we changed our recruitment model from being pure 360 to being account manager plus 360. As well as at the same time 3 years ago, we set up a contract recruitment division, which we'd never done contract before. So we're now about 15% of our net fee comes from contracting. So 3 years ago, there was a massive amount of change. Split with my business partner, changed the model to account manager plus 360s, set up a contract recruitment outfit, and started doing rookie academies or training academies to bring in rookies and turn them into recruiters.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So before we move off onto that period in more detail, what would you learn, or how would you advise the next generation of people that are potentially, like I've got business partners, a lot of people have business partners, what advice would you give that would say, based on your experience, things, I would never advocate just don't have a business partner, but what do you need to think about to make sure you keep that relationship healthy if you're going to have one?
Someone said to me, great advice, when you first go into the relationship, you've got to look at it as though it's the end of the relationship and what would happen. Yeah, because at first you're all best mates and you're as close as can be, yeah? But you've got to stop and think what happens if and when it goes wrong, because there's a good chance it will. So without undermining it, take it from that point. Get a good shareholders agreement in place, a fair and sensible shareholders agreement. And if you're 50-50 shareholders, make sure there's a deadlock provision in there. So if you're ever stuck on a decision of anything, there's a sensible and rational way out of it. Because otherwise you're locked 50-50 and you just spiral around going nowhere.
How would you put a third party in place for that then? Someone,
or your accountants, or a lawyer, or a trusted third party who can't be influenced, or something. There needs to be some form of mechanism.
If one says no on a 50-50, it's a no, isn't it? It doesn't move anyway. Yeah.
Effectively. Yeah.
So let's go into that period then. So can you remember the feeling and what life was like for the first few months after being the sole owner of MRO?
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting.
Is it like starting again in a way?
In some ways, nothing changed for anyone else in the business. Everything had been on my shoulders. It was just me, really, in real terms. But yeah, we'd moved to a new office. I'd re-inherited Hove Office. I'd had a different guy running Hove Office, but unfortunately he'd done an appalling job. So he left the business, and I re-inherited the Hove Office. So I was both chief exec and MD of the Hove Office, and we'd moved to new offices, and we'd just implemented these new models. So actually it was quite exciting times. We were starting to feel the uptick, the upsurge. We went through a whole quality control mechanism. We dropped about 50% of the companies we were dealing with because the terms were either poor or...
Do you know what I hear so many people saying they've done that and how liberating it is?
Well, after Lehman Brothers, a lot of clients had pushed our fees into the ground. But the market has changed, the world's turned. And we're not doing noddy business anymore. No. Yeah. So we went out to our clients and basically said, we're not working at these rates anymore. Either up your rates, or I'm afraid we can't be partners anymore.
Think about it. In any other market, in any other industry, if demand is high and supply is low, cost goes up.
Yeah.
But in recruitment, they want to drive fees down.
But a lot of clients were still in the mindset that it was post Lehman. Yeah. And so I think they were quite surprised when their supplier, who's meant to be a dutiful little recruiter, going, please, can I have some vacancies? You're sitting there going, well, actually, I don't want to be one of four on a multi-agent contingent bun fight, yeah? And sub 20% business is pony. We're not doing anything with a one in front of it. In fact, standard rates are 25-30%. I'm sorry about that. If you can't afford it, yeah? Not my problem. So we rejigged quality control mechanism right across the company, which increased our average sales value quite dramatically. not far off about a 55% increase in average fees, I think it was.
Did it drop revenue though as a result, or not?
No, increased revenue. Revenue has doubled in the last 3 years as a business. That's
insane. So how many people did you have then?
We were 40 people 3 years ago.
No, 61.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so headcount's up 50%, sales are up 100%. So the sales increase is massively outstripping the headcount increase.
Has the contract business have had a big impact on that as well?
They had a slower start than I'd anticipated or that I'd actually thought, but they're now starting to get good traction. And it's something I wish we'd done years and years ago. So I hired a good guy I knew in the local market. He had 25 years contract recruitment experience. He knows his stuff inside out. And fortunately, his career was at a juncture where I was able to secure.
Yeah, that is always. I mean, I was a contract recruiter, and to move a good contract recruiter,
if you've got a big book, it's impossible.
That was one of the biggest things about leaving. If I'm honest, I was at a point where I was earning so much money in commission for about a year. I thought to myself, I got offered a proper management job the year before, and I was like, I was already in my head knowing I was going to leave 12 months later. So I was like, I just know I'm going to earn less money, and I ended up earning less money. But I was like, in a way, it'll be easier to walk away from the business if I've got less money, all my contractors have gone off to my team, but also I'm learning management on their book. So hopefully, I knew what they were doing. Like, they were sensible guys. Like, hopefully, even if they're listening, they knew that I was a risk at that point, because I had so many contractors all around me and a couple of people helping me. If they could spread me across 6 people, which is exactly what we did, and when I walked away, there was an impact, but it wasn't anywhere near what it would have been a year before. Yeah. But to get a good contract recruiter is so hard.
Really hard.
So you've done really well there.
Yeah, so he's built, or starting to build a team. Got 6 people in the contracting team now. They're starting to get a decent run rate, starting to get some decent number of runners out. And the idea was that they would piggyback off the back of our perms team. So we've got some blue chip perms companies we've been dealing with literally since 97, 98, So 20-year legacy relationships on perm that would never touch for contract. So Greg and his team are now going into those companies looking for contract business, so we're offering more service to the same client portfolio, but as well as finding other new business in their own space.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I mean, obviously, look, you've made a lot of noise online about in the last few weeks. How much engagement did you get in that first post you did about the 4-day?
Massive. More than I ever realised.
Like a couple of 100,000 views at least, wasn't it?
If not more, if not more.
So I mentioned it in the intro. David recently launched a 4-day work week. It's something that when I met John Nash at Nicholson, I think you know John, right?
Yeah. He used to work with him. Yeah.
So he's been doing it for a few years.
4 years now.
And I left the meeting with John. I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And I felt like I wanted to go and implement it there and then, which I've not done, obviously. Yeah. I mean, we have no annual leave. There's unlimited annual. I actually think it's a problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a problem and I want to change it. The reason it is it's probably because people are taking not enough.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, like I've had 1 or 2 people that have took 30, 40 days.
Yeah.
And I've had another 5, 6 people that have taken 11.
It sounds brilliant, but is someone actually going to take 3 months off?
No, and actually, do you know what? If you give them, they need to have your 20, 25 days. So we're going to look at adapting that next year. But anyway, so if the team's listening, hold on, get your days in now. You're not going to have much more. But tell us, where did you start thinking about?
John Nash. John Nash. I used to work with him at PSD in Lewis back in the mid-90s. He'd gone on to run Nicholson.
What a lovely bloke as well.
Super bloke, genuinely. And I'd seen a post he put out on LinkedIn 4 years ago about his 4-day week. And at the time I thought, wow, that could be an absolute game changer, right? But at the time I was having all my business issues and it wasn't the right time for us. And then back in January, we're having a quarterly management meeting. And it was my German office manager who suggested, we were talking about recruitment and retention within MRL, because the hardest hiring we do every year is for ourselves, right? And obviously you don't want good people leaving. So, goal saved is a goal scored or whatever, yeah? And so we were talking about recruitment and retention and what could we do and how can we be a better employer and blah, blah, blah. And Enrico says, have you considered a 4-day week? And he didn't think I'd take it seriously. And to be fair, I was a bit like, what? You want another day off, mate? Just talk to me, yeah? And he was like, no, it's not for me. It's for the staff. He said, look, think of it this way. Good people will never leave and more good people will want to join.
So true.
And I was like, you've got my attention. So we went off, he and I, and we did a whole bunch of studies, and there's tons of information online. There's loads of companies in Denmark and Sweden who have been doing this for years and years successfully. I spoke to John. He was very kind with his time. He gave me loads of time and input about how he'd done it, pitfalls to watch out for.
Do you think you have to be a certain size to do it?
You need a few people around you, I think, to get the benefit of it. If you're a two-man band, well, I don't know if you're a two-man band, you probably work whatever hours you want anyway, don't you? I'd guess.
Yeah.
I think someone said to me, would I have done it back in 97, 98 when I was building the business? Probably not. I was pushing 14-hour days back then, and I was 27. I had the energy. Now it's a different proposition. But I don't know if I would do it when I'm very early doors. I think you need to build the infrastructure first, I think.
So one of the things John said, which again, I'm sure you're saying, is what you're not saying is we're reducing the targets. We're not expecting that we're going to do 80% of our previous 100%.
No.
You're expecting the same levels of performance, but how can you actually get that out of people in less time?
How much time do you waste every day at work? How much time do you spend scrolling, like waste of time scrolling Twitter, Facebook,
This is what
Instagram?
my business is about, Dave. Don't ruin my business. I want people to be scrolling. I want them online.
How much time do you spend chatting about
Forget
lunch?
the 4-day week.
And
Work
football?
6 days and read LinkedIn all day.
And how much time do you spend chatting about football and what to have for
Fridays
lunch?
in recruitment.
And what did you do at the weekend? And what are you doing? How much time gets wasted every day? There's a guy I know, David Heath in Brighton. Okay, he runs a company called ESC. He is a very, very, very good recruiter in the niche energy sectors. He ran a study on himself recently, a time study. He reckoned after 2 weeks he was averaging 4 hours 12 minutes of work a day in an 8-hour day. He's working half the time, and half the time was chit chat, scrolling,
distraction,
nonsense.
Yeah.
And he's flipping good at his job. He's a 400 grand biller sort of thing. And so if he's only working at half speed, what are other people working at? So if you can take that 4 hours work a day to 6 hours a day, you've still got 2 hours for chit chat and football talk, but you're getting that extra 2 hours a day back. So in that respect, you can easily do your hours or your job in a 4-day week. And we haven't stretched the hours. People are still knocking off at 6 o'clock, yeah? But there's no expectation.
And are you saying, right, the office is open on a Friday if you want to go?
It's open if someone really wanted to go in or catch up. And to be fair, I've gone in.
And are people doing work from home on Fridays?
Not much.
No.
They're available to field urgent calls if they have to. Make or take.
Have you let clients know as well?
Yeah. I wrote to every client.
So if a client says, we're going to release a job on a Friday, we're having a conference call, you'll say to the team, get on it.
There would be an expectation that you would still do your job. But then to be fair, you tell me which recruiter isn't on their phone 7 days a week. Which recruiter isn't on their phone every single evening?
Well, only good ones. The shit ones probably
aren't. And we've all made and taken calls on a Sunday evening if you have to. You don't want to, but if you have to, you do it. It comes with the territory. Yeah?
Yep.
Now, so the only difference on the Friday here is if you've got to take a call, well, take it, but you might be taking it from the beach, right? Or taking it from the park, or taking it from the school run. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be sitting in an office counting down the hours. And how much recruitment work is being done in a recruitment office on a Friday afternoon?
I'd say when I was in recruitment, almost zero.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I was that guy that, I wouldn't say I was 100% productive on a Friday, but I wasn't the guy that really slacked. I remember we used to have a meeting. We did your Friday roundup, and there was a couple of people in my business that were never fucking there. Like, they were always on a meeting, always meeting a candidate. They're in a pub. I was there every week, and it was just who I was. But most people were talking about fantasy football from lunchtime onwards. And
Friday,
what are you going to eat? Well, Friday, it's like, where are you going to have your lunch?
And they're counting down the clock until pub time. Yeah. So in a respect,
do you not think that happens on a Thursday now, though?
No. And this is one of the tricks. And
that'd be my concern with people who start to.
If Thursday afternoon becomes the new Friday afternoon, it's fatal. And so the thing is, I've got a good bunch of people. They're very diligent. And they know that this is a massive perk. It's a massive benefit to them. There's no one else doing it at them. Or apart from John and one or two others, there's hardly anyone doing it, yeah? I don't think there's anyone else in Brighton doing it. Or Sophia and Tiplis, or Dresden for that matter. And so they know what a perk they've got. And they know at the end of the trial, if it hasn't worked, we're going to take it away.
How long have you said you'll give it?
6-month trial, right? We're 5 weeks in now, yeah? I think people are now, they're going through that period of adjustment. But the buzz, there's a far more tangible and noticeable buzz in the office Monday to Thursday. People come in and they get on with it. There isn't that Monday morning malaise anymore that there used to be, yeah? And I feel this personally now, I get to Sunday evening, I've had a 3-day weekend, I'm good, I'm relaxed, it's time to go back to work. Yeah. I used to be on a Sunday evening flipping exhausted, I was knackered. Yeah, I'd go into Monday like a flipping ghost. Now I'm ready to go back on Monday, and it's only 4 days. Let's go and hit it hard.
I used to say, again in recruitment, was that if I could bottle the Friday morning vibes and put them out in the office on a Monday, it'd be unbelievable. Because they were like two different people. People who walk in like snapping their fingers like, hey, how you doing? What are you doing this weekend? Monday, people would come in, they'd look sheepish, they'd look dishevelled, they wouldn't want to speak to each other. And it'd take till like 10 o'clock before they could even get on the phone sometimes. And you're like, I think it is all about mindset. It's all psychological. And I mean, I love the fact you've been bold enough to do it, because I think there's so many would love to do it and they're too scared.
There's a lot of people watching. I think we're the guinea pig right now. Yeah, we're the guinea pig for a lot of companies. And fine, someone said to me they think within 5 years this is going to become relatively common practice. I think that's probably true. I
think a lot of businesses will have flexible working, as in like everyone will work from home on a Friday or whatever. I can't imagine there'll be that many that will shut the office on a Friday. And I'm not even talking about recruitment, I'm talking about industry in general.
I don't know, some industries, I think recruitment suits a 4-day week much better because we're outcomes based.
Yeah.
You're either making your placements or you're not. If you're making your placements in 4 days, who cares what you do on the 5th? Does anyone genuinely care? No. If you've got your interview count, you've made your call stats or whatever your metrics are that you're working to.
Well, my business is different. So we're on an hours base. So we're more like an accountancy or a law firm.
Yes.
So I would be chopping 20% of my billable hours.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do like work from home on a Friday and say you don't have to be in the office that's still, I mean, we have work from home any day you want. You just let us know within 24 hours.
Does it work though?
Yeah. We've got connectivity with Google Hangout. We have Google Chat where we do
it's probably me and my mindset, my short attention span, but I can't work from home. And also I've got loads of kids.
Oh yeah.
And I always think working from home is a bit of a misnomer.
Do you know what? I don't think
especially if you've got kids.
I don't think any of our team have got kids. They're all like 20s, early 30s.
Right, you're young.
No one has actually. And do you know what? That's a good point. No one's got that problem. And also we only typically, no one does more than a day. Like I did a day. I did 2 days in a row when I was moving into my flat.
Yeah.
Builders coming round and all blinds being fitted. I hated it. Whereas the first day was nice. The second day I was like, get me back to the office.
Yeah.
So I think one day, as long as you've got shit to do and you've got a plan, it can be really nice to have no questions and just crack through it. But again, I'm not talking from a sales, much of a recruitment job.
Are you going to sit at your dining table and clatter out new biz calls from home? Probably not.
Probably not.
I've always thought as well, and this may be speaking personally, but if the kids are around, working from home is a misnomer. You're scrolling your phone and emails every now and then whilst dealing with small children and whatever they're interrupting you about. Yeah, but that's me.
Yeah.
And I know a few people who can do an honest, diligent day's work at home, but I think they're rare. Those
minority. Like you said, I think that is way more dependent on your life circumstance.
Yeah.
Than anything else. It's a good point. So 5 weeks, you're saying everyone's pumped. Have you hired many people since? Because I imagine the attraction of the ability to convert potential talent would be a lot higher.
The application rate has been huge.
Really?
The number of people applying has been huge. To be fair, we're being ultra picky and ultra fussy. Yeah,
you need to be.
I don't want the slackers who just fancy a 4-day week. I want the ones who are good enough to do 5 days of work in 4, and they're rare creatures. Yeah, so we've had massive application rate. We're interviewing constantly. It's a far smaller number that we're progressing with, shall we say? But yeah, I've had a couple of brilliant people from the local market, from competitors in the local market, come forward.
You would. So when you put that video up, what did you think of the response you got?
I was actually genuinely shocked. The size of the response, the positivity of the response. I expected to get a few naysayers. You know what it's like in recruitment. There's always some chippy people who think they know everything. And I thought I'd get a few more chippy comments.
What about your clients and candidates? Did anyone get it from that side?
Really positive. So I wrote personally to every single client, said, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and here's my mobile, and if you've got any problem or questions, call me. And so far, every single client response has been really positive. Think about it, a lot of our client contact is HR. So this is a very HR topic, the 4-day working week, health and wellness in the office, mental health benefits, yeah? And so it's actually hitting quite a current chord at the moment.
100%.
And so we've had a few clients actually say to us, can you come and talk to us in 3-6 months' time and let us know how it's going? We might think about implementing it in our own environment, yeah? I've had tons of competitors contact me and say, let me know how you get on. I'm a bit like, in a way, I'm a bit like, what, you just want some free bloody consultancy, do you? Maybe I should start charging £1,000 an hour or something. But I'm playing nicely at the moment. And I do think it is genuinely it's a change for good.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a change for good for the industry, for mental health at work, for wellness and happiness, all those good things.
So I want to go back to a topic you mentioned. So you made a statement at the beginning of this podcast, right? And obviously my business is built on helping recruitment agencies grow through inbound marketing, right? So it's not replacing the old school. I'm a complete believer. I agree 100% with what you're saying, that you could still run a company the old way. But also, if you look at what you've just done, that one video you produced got that many thousands of views. Yeah. You could never have achieved that from picking up the phone. No. It's impossible to reach that many people in the time you did. Yeah. And that's why, I mean, do you understand what we're doing? Because I think a lot of the old school recruitment owners will say, forget that social crap. We'll just carry on as we are. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, well, imagine you took the principles you've just done and you adopted them on top of the old school. Yep. That's, to me, the new school. I'm
learning. This is all still quite alien. The whole video thing, I'm still struggling with it, to be absolutely honest. And the traction has been massive and has been really, mind-blowing.
But it's not all video. It's what you've done is, you've took a topic that you've said is really relevant. It's actually, it's created emotion. I watched your video and I was like, I instantly was like, fuck, John Nash said it, you're saying it, I've got to do this now. Like, you created an urgency in me, like goosebumps. I'm like, what am I going to do now about this? Because that's the type of guy I am. I'm running a company. I've got commitment. I've got people that I'm paying. Yeah. So I'm like, do I need to do this in the future, right? So you took a topic, an amazingly relevant topic, but still, you knew that would, ideally, if there's other people like you or clients or whatever, that by putting it out there, you just wanted to share the story, but you also had an idea, hopefully, that people would engage with it. It went pretty much like basically viral in the way that it was responded to. And honestly, that if you take the principles, but you don't worry about, it's not always going to be about 4-day weeks and stuff, but if you think about your market and you just adopt, it could be a 15, a little paragraph you write as a status. It doesn't have to be a video. It could be sharing an image or a quote or whatever. But if you're thinking about the audience, which is your candidates and your clients, and what they're going through, if you can resonate with them or have an opinion on what they're doing or what you think's going on in the market, you can reach thousands in seconds. That you're still making your BD calls, you're still doing your TV stripping, but within an hour a day or 15 minutes a day, you're getting your name and your brand and your face to thousands of people. That was not possible back in the day.
Nope, that totally was not. But I'm amazed that the traction video is getting far more than blogs.
Amazing.
The written word. And I'm a big convert to that because I used to be actually quite allergic to it and I just refused to do it point blank.
But recruiters are guys that probably always lent on speaking over writing. Yeah? You were like me. You asked me to write a report. Oh, fuck off. Yeah. I'll say it. I'll talk about it all day. And that's what video is.
But it's getting over seeing yourself and hearing yourself. How weird does your voice sound? You're like, fuck's that?
When I first did Hoxo stuff, I was thinking, I'll be all right at this. And when I did it, I was like, oh my God, that is not me. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, it pretty much is me when I watch it back.
You get used to it.
You do get
used to it. It gets easier.
And if you think 5 years ahead, mate, that genuinely, like, there won't be people out there in any industry that aren't taking selfies and talking to the camera. That is going to become complete common practice. And there'll be something else. It'll be like VR or whatever will come in next. Yeah. So we're all heading that way. But I think what I'm banging on about across the industry is it's that blend. If you keep the approach you've trained your team to, that's amazing. Don't lose that. Just add a few things on top.
Yes.
And then you've got a secret. Yeah. You can step
And so we've got a new marketing guy, Billy. I think you've met Billy.
Yeah.
And he's a big advocate for all these things and he's pushing it. And I'm a Luddite. I'm old school. I'm a bit of a dinosaur in some respects. And I love the old ways. I love the old school. And so I have taken a bit of educating and conversion to this. But now, seeing the benefit of it.
But like you said, you're the guinea pig and people are watching.
Yeah.
That's the same with marketing in general. There's so many recruiters just watching what we're doing and what others are doing and thinking, I'll worry if that starts to perform, we'll buy it.
Exactly. So equally, I've got to try and max first mover advantage now.
100%.
Because if everyone else is watching and following in 6 months' time, I've got to get the benefit now.
So what's the future look like for MRL? What is pumping you? Because you've got energy. I can feel it from you right now. What still gets you up in the morning to go? Because you could sell it, you could sit back, you could get an MD in. There's loads of options. What's making you keep going?
I love it. I love recruitment. I genuinely, passionately love recruitment. I can't imagine doing much else. And I'm one of those sad gits that if I won Euro Millions on a Friday night, I'd take a month off, go to Sandy Lane in Barbados, and then come back to work after a month. I do love doing what I'm doing most of the time. What have we got to do at MRL? Okay, there's tons more to do. Work never ends. There's far more growth we can take in Europe, There's massive growth we can do in Europe. I would like an office in the United States. We're increasing the amount of activity we're doing in America already. Last year, America was our 4th biggest geography for business. And I'm looking to build the book in Germany before we invest on people on the ground out there. In America, sorry.
Where would you go, do you think?
Probably Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to San Jose, but Silicon Valley property prices are just bonkers, like really bonkers. So we'd probably go to Austin, Texas is what I want to do. Get that right. I'd love to have something in Asia, Hong Kong maybe. Then you've got your global coverage. We've got our model right now, the Account Manager 360 model, still building contracting. Statement of Works is coming up, and that's something which is quite interesting actually. And I hired a guy at the end of last year, really experienced guy to come in to build us a Statement of Works division, which dovetails in with the contracting division. So it's actually it's a full service offering for clients. Get that to a certain size. And then at which point, maybe I'll be too old and tired and someone younger and more energetic will need to take that forward. In the meantime, we're incubating a recruitment startup in Brighton, and I'd like to do more of that in the future. So maybe when I'm not so busy with the day job of running MRL, I'll do more of the incubating stuff with other startup recruitment companies.
So you'll invest
generally, I love it. I love it, and I love talking to young recruiters.
Amazing. Have you got anyone who's like your number 2 that you could see looking after MRL in the future?
I'm mentoring some people, but there's no clear standout just yet.
There's a number of people in there. Okay. And is there an exit plan long term? Would you sell? Would you?
Not particularly. No. People have asked me that before, but I'm like, the thing is, even if I flog the company tomorrow, what am I going to do? Yeah, I don't play golf. I don't want to sit at home with the kids. I'd go nuts. I couldn't do my wife's job. I might as well continue doing this for a bit because there isn't. It sounds sad, and I know it does. There's nothing else I want to go and do. Yeah,
love it. There's so many people. It is amazing, like how many people do love this industry and love what they're doing, especially when they've built businesses and they still got that passion for it.
But it's brilliant. You take a young person, right, fresh out of uni or fresh out of a mobile phone shop or whatever it is, and you teach them to become a good recruiter, and they go from earning 12, 14 grand a year living with their mum to earning 60, 100, 150 grand a year, driving smart cars, buying smart flats, living the life. And you played a little part in that development. And that's a very satisfying proposition.
100%. I remember the big checks I got at the beginning. It was like, I just had to email my bosses and just say thanks. I was like, this is a joke. Like, I earned more in a month than my parents would have earned in a year.
You're earning more than doctors and lawyers with all their years worth of training. Yeah. Equally, the burnout rate in recruitment is high. Yeah, there's only so many years you can keep at the sharp end of it. And so as a company, you've got to be looking at what do you do for the good people and how do you mold their careers so that they don't burn out, or that when they start to get tired, you can do other things with them.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to end this with three takeaways, right? So let's say you're the end of your life, David. There's one day we're all going to leave this world.
Yeah.
On the last day, end of your life, you've got to write 3 things on a piece of paper, which is like, right, for the future of recruitment, stick to these 3 principles. What are you going to give them?
For the future of recruitment, to stick to 3 principles
that you've learned.
I've learned. 1, get on the phone. The phone still works, right? 2, don't over diversify. Stick to a niche and be the absolute best in that niche in your market or in the world, or whatever you can be the best in that niche. And 3, humility. No one walks on water. Nobody's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. If you make a mistake, fine. Hold your hands up and say you made a mistake and don't do it again. That's stupid, right? Everyone makes mistakes, and that's human, right? There's too many egos in recruitment. There's too many, if you excuse the phrase, big swinging dicks. Yeah, I can't bear those people. I don't want those people in my business, right? But humility is a beautiful thing when you see it.
Amazing.
So get on the phone, stick to a niche market, and show humility.
Be humble, show humility. I love it. Awesome. Well, look, this podcast will be going out in about 2 weeks' time, so we're looking at early July. Okay. I'll be a married man by then, hopefully.
Good luck.
Hopefully. I might be sat on a
honeymoon.
You're going to Greece, going to Mykonos and Santorini. Beautiful. So I'll hopefully be in the sun while this is being aired, with a bottle of Mythos in my hand. But once this is aired, potentially people might want to reach out, maybe about the 4-day week, but actually just about other things. Are you open for that?
Please do.
Yeah.
Contact me. Ping me.
LinkedIn, the best way to get hold of you?
Yep.
All right. So David Stone, you'll be tagged in all of this. And that's it for another episode of the RAG podcast. As I always finish this off, please, if you're listening to this and you like what you're listening to, drop me or David a note. Share some comments on LinkedIn. What we're looking to do is we want to be the place in the industry where aspiring owners or leaders come to listen to what others have achieved to better their own performance. And the more we share, the more people will listen and the more we can protect the industry. Also, if you're listening on the iTunes store, give us a 5-star rating, put your comments in there. That will allow Apple to promote it further, again, to reach more people. Thanks again. Speak to you all soon.